What's up, guys? Will Hoy coming at you with another video. This time it's going to be RPG oddities, mostly oddball stuff that adds to your game, props, books, source books, splat books, whatever. This time I raided a army surplus store, and the guy who owns it is DC Thornley. Got to give a shout out to him because he gave me such a great deal on this bulk buy. Surplus store, it's up in Somerville, bravo7.com. Link will be in the description. Without further ado, let's get this started. Alright guys, these are some quick examples of some field handbooks that your player characters are just ideas for stuff they might be carrying. So over here we got rules of use of force, you know, when it's okay to use it, the stuff that you need to do. Basic, this should give you actually just as a resource a very good idea of what exactly your officer characters and just general military NPCs and PCs, how they would likely behave in and around a combat zone or area of engagement or interest. This is same thing, only with Blackhawks, only it's kind of more of a manual since it's a company tax up. General, if you're guys like military soup jargon type stuff, there's a lot of code words here, and it also shows different squad formations for the infantry that deploy from the Black Ops. You know, really cool stuff. So if you're playing anything where you're even in a fantasy game where you're transporting guys in carts or whatever, useful to have. Useful for planning, I think. It's also, again, a really good prop. Then we've got this handbook, which is something that they definitely should have. Escalation of Force. This is specifically for the theater of war in Afghanistan. As of '09, it's the, you know, you can see all the stuff on there. But it details a lot of dealing with the locals, actually, winning hearts and minds, stuff like that. More so than actual combat or tactics. Mostly just proper use of force, remaining lawful and just, and stuff like that. Avoiding unnecessary engagements and so on and so forth, and not pissing off the locals or being a dick. Service members' personal guide, yeah, you can read that. Basically, this one, it's how to combat terrorism on the home front, how to avoid becoming a target of terrorists, how to protect your family from them, realistic expectations for what life as a service member should be. And these are all in the modern setting, modern day, obviously, but I still think that they have bearing on any campaign. But, you know, just quick overview of my loot pile for this video. But yeah, definitely fun to have, fun to read through, really useful when planning role-playing encounters and engagements with military types. Anyways, on to the next video. Alright, so a lot of things have tech manuals. This is, it might seem odd, but extreme cold weather gear does in fact have a tech manual. It, in good detail, actually shows at what temperature you're supposed to wear what clothing, so he's got on different layers and stuff, and any really good cold weather system will come with that. M16 technical manual. You can find these for almost any gun if you look hard enough, and again, I raided a surplus store. So it shows cleaning and disassembly and other stuff like that. Really cool stuff, especially if any of your guys are gun geeks, like me. Now this is a pyrotechnics operating manual. And, you know, it's mostly for simulators and stuff, but they actually do have booby traps. You know, and it actually explains that, and also how to make a hand grenade using these things. Lots of warnings, don't do this, don't blow your hand up, stuff like that. Let me see, maneuver, control system, tactical enhancement. Yeah, basically, now, if you, this would be great for a joke. I think they actually put this on there just because this was such a frustrating system from what I hear. You know, just really, really super complicated how to hook up stuff to get into the tactical database thing. So, you know, there's that. Here's just kind of a view of this overall package. I'm probably going to use these as props at my table, in some form or another. But basically, they're nice props to have. So if your players' characters have them in their inventory, you can just kind of hand them to this. This one in particular is super cool. Um, but yeah, they're pretty good for flavor and stuff. Just, fun to have if you're running a sort of modern military campaign. Just, stuff like that. So these are going to be the field guides for a lot of tactical and large scale engagement stuff. So very good adventure planning material here. Without further ado, let's begin. Um, these books have very detailed attack plans. These are, you can really just kind of look at these and adapt them for your game or campaign, or use them as a reference point for how people did things. For mounted and dismounted attacks, and if you're planning on using any sort of vehicles or even horses in some cases, this would definitely be worthwhile. Just overlapping stuff. Just, they're just pretty nice reference stuff. This is I like because it's a straight up camp. It just shows how they break down from their vehicles and set up a camp operations zone type thing. There's not too much in this book. It's pretty nice though. It's kind of a mix of infantry and um, yeah, mechanized. This one's just mechanized infantry. So guys in trucks and armored transports and stuff like that. Next up, we've got our tank platoon book. I got this one. I actually like this one a lot. I use it when I'm planning cavalry stuff now. Just general stuff and planning. By the way, this is very interesting. If you're ever thinking of, should I lay traps outside of dungeons, this is a very interesting guide because it says this is watch out at these spots for landmines. So if you just kind of look at this and use the book as a reference, you can basically get a pretty good idea of where you'd really want to set up ambush zones and how the player should avoid them and stuff like that. Minefields could easily just be magic traps instead. You know, it also details, if you want to, how they use artillery and other stuff, how CIOs work within it. Just claiming objectives, things like that. Again, these are all like kind of adventures within themselves. Like you could easily just take one of these pictures and throw some moving components in there, and then you've got some pretty cool stuff. Also, if you're wanting to let your players do different skills, there's details on close air support and taking down helicopters with tanks and stuff like that. Just to add variety to your game, so it's not all shooting or dungeon raids. I think most games don't have enough open field stuff. Just kind of giving you an idea of how much detail is really in these manuals and guides. Yeah, just kind of you get the idea. Tank platoon, so tankers make for amazing stories. It's kind of like almost the World War One writer's effect, because you've got a very likely the entire party would be crew members. You know. Yeah, and just this is for tank and mechanized infantry, so it's kind of a combination of the last two books, and you've got a huge ass number of people with this. So it's got a lot of very detailed images. I really like the art personally. You know, it also gives you a sense of how they expected leadership to be within civil-military cooperation, stuff like that. Just very useful details are kind of scattered throughout the book. Combat orders, general maneuvers. Generally speaking, this is my favorite overall. Glad I managed to flip to this. This actually shows how they would set up riflemen encampments for the mechanized infantry are used to protect the tanks, and the tanks protect the infantry. It makes both units stronger. This is actually the type of parapets and just trenches and stuff that they'd get in. If you actually notice, it says sloped to center and front. That's actually so that grenades get caught in there and they can throw them back. Really cool. And, the two-man version. Just good role-playing, just two guys talking in a pit, waiting to see if anyone's going to shoot at them. That obviously that would also work with crossbows for my, yeah. But, just actually, you can actually hide tanks. I was surprised by that, and I've talked to some tank guys, and they're like, yeah, you can totally hide tanks. I never would have thought to do that. Apparently, it scares the shit out of people when, a couple 100-ton vehicle rushes out the tree line at them. But, just general tactic stuff. I'm going to try to find... I know that there's some really cool... Yeah, like this. Detailed battle plans and objective zones. So, I mean, you could basically take a look at this and plan an entire adventure around it. Like, this operation could be an adventure in itself. Defensive techniques in urbanized areas. So city fighting, field fighting, stuff like that. Just trying to give you a sense of how detailed a lot of this stuff is. Like this. It's got an objective, an attack position, Just, this is the kind of stuff that you'd probably... it's fairly easy to draw this crap. But you can kind of just draw something similar and land it on your player's table. Dismounted route patrol, for when they get out the tanks. Stuff like that. Just trying to give you guys a good sense of the book. It's a pretty hefty one, too. And I believe these also detail CAS support, close air support. I guess in a fantasy game that would be dragons, or like hippogriffs or something, I don't know. These are... I'm trying to make this adaptable and as system universal as possible, but that's really hard for me. But yeah. Just general formation stuff, too. Again, just gives you a really good sense of what you're supposed to be doing with this. These types of formations and stuff. Combat doctrines, light doctrines for, how to use stuff at night. But, so overall, tank and mechanized infantry. If some guys want to stay in the tank and some guys want to be the dude who jumps out the back of the cargo truck or APC or whatever. Planning all tank adventures, tank platoon. You can these things are everywhere too. And mechanized infantry. That's just jumping out the back of trucks and APCs, and there's probably some other stuff, but most of the stuff detailed in here is that. What's really cool about this one, though, I just kind of had to throw this in here, destruction notice. Yeah. Burn before the enemy can get their hands on it. That's why that makes a great table prop. Just that being written on there makes a great table prop. Anyways, guys, gears up next.